The conference hall stretched 300 meters across, its ceiling lost in artificial twilight. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, some in chairs, others in liquid chambers, a few floating in magnetic fields. At the center of it all stood the human delegation, 3 people who looked remarkably small compared to the massive alien form surrounding them. Hien-Wu adjusted his jacket and waited. He had been a diplomat for 20 years, and he knew when someone was about to deliver bad news. The way the council members whispered among themselves, the way they avoided looking directly at the human section, it all pointed to something unpleasant. The head of the Vren hegemony rose from his platform. His insect-like body clicked and chittered as translation devices converted his speech into something humans could understand. We have called this assembly to address a problem that has concerned the council for some time. Humanity has grown too powerful, too quickly. Your species arrived in this galaxy only 200 years ago. Yet you control trade routes, military technology, and economic systems that should belong to the elder races. Next to Hien-Wu, Gi-Won tensed. She was the military advisor, a veteran of 3 colonial defense campaigns. Her hand moved slightly toward her datapad, probably calculating fleet positions. On his other side, De-Hyen remained calm. The chief economist had probably seen this coming from the trade reports. The crystalline representative of the Aurum Collective spoke next, its voice like wind chimes in a storm. The council has decided that humanity must accept new terms. First, all human military vessels will be reduced to patrol craft only. Second, human colonies will pay 80% of their gross production to the council treasury. Third, all human government decisions will require council approval before implementation. It's a hall filled with clicking, buzzing, and humming as other species added their agreement. The reptilian Soros delegate hissed something about human arrogance. A gaseous entity from the Nebula Consortium rippled with what might have been laughter. Hien-Wu listened to all of it. He had prepared 3 different speeches for this meeting, depending on what the council proposed. Now he realized he wouldn't need any of them. He looked at Gi-Won, who gave him a slight nod. He glanced at De-Hyen, who was already closing his datapad with a small smile. The Vren representative continued. You will have 1 standard week to present your counter-proposal. The council expects you to negotiate in good faith. We understand these terms are difficult, but they are necessary for galactic stability. Hien-Wu stood up. The hall fell silent. Every sensor, eye, and detection organ focused on him. Thank you for your time, Hien-Wu said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Thank you for making your position clear. Humanity declines your terms. Effective immediately, we withdraw from all Galactic Council affairs. Our embassies will close within 72 hours. Our trade agreements are terminated. Our defense pacts are void. Our research partnerships are concluded. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. He picked up his datapad and walked toward the exit. Ji-Won and De-Hyen followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent hall. The Vren representative recovered first. You cannot simply leave. The council has not dismissed you. We have not finished negotiations. Hien-Wu paused at the doorway and looked back. There's nothing to negotiate. You presented terms. We declined. That's how free people conduct business. Goodbye. They walked out. Behind them, the hall erupted in noise. Alarms began to sound as the council tried to seal the doors. But human security technology had already overridden the station's systems. The 3 diplomats made their way to the docking bay, where their ship waited inside the ship. Hien-Wu sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from adrenaline. Gi-Won was already on the communication system, sending encrypted messages to Fleet Command. De-Hyen opened his pad again and began executing pre-programmed economic protocols. They think we're bluffing, Ji-Won said. Station security just tried to prevent our departure. I showed them our authorization codes, and they backed off, but they clearly don't believe we're serious. They will, De-Han replied. I just sent the withdrawal order to every human commercial vessel in the galaxy. By this time tomorrow, 17,000 ships will begin returning to human space. By the end of the week, not a single human trader will be operating in Council territory. Hyunwoo looked out the viewport as their ship pulled away from the station. How long do you think it will take them to understand? Understand what? Ji-won asked. That we meant every word. Their ship jumped too faster than light travel, leaving the Council station behind. Within hours, every human embassy in the galaxy received the same message. Pack up, come home. The experiment is over. On 47 worlds, human ambassadors delivered polite farewell notes. On 300 trading stations, human merchants began loading their cargo and departing. On 17 research facilities, human scientists backed up their data and shut down the projects they had been leading. The galaxy barely noticed at first. The Vren hegemony issued a statement saying humanity would return within a week, begging for readmission. The Aurum Collective calculated that humans would lose more from the withdrawal than the Council would. The Soros Empire declared it good riddance. But in the human sectors of space, something else was happening. Colonial governors received orders to become self-sufficient. Military commanders were told to secure all borders and refuse entry to non-human ships. Factory managers began retooling production lines to replace every item humans had been importing from alien sources. President Sujin addressed the human population in a broadcast that reached every colony, every ship, every station. For 200 years, we have worked to be part of this galactic community. We built their technology. We solved their problems. We died in their wars. And today they told us we were too successful. They told us we must become their servants or face consequences. So, we chose a third option. We chose ourselves. The message continued. Starting now, humanity stands alone. We will trade with no one who does not respect us as equals. We will negotiate with no one who sees us as inferior. We will build a future on our own terms. It will be difficult. It will be challenging. But it will be ours. Across human space, the response was immediate. There was no panic, no fear. Instead, there was something the galaxy had not expected. There was relief. There was determination, and there was anger at having been used for so long. The withdrawal had begun. The galaxy would soon learn what it had lost. Fleet Admiral Taeyang watched the tactical display as another 100 human ships crossed back into protected space. Each green dot represented a merchant vessel, a passenger transport, or a research ship that had been operating in alien territory. Now they were coming home, and his job was to make sure they all arrived safely. Admiral, we have a situation at the Vren border, his communications officer reported. 3 human cargo ships are being detained. The hegemony is demanding they unload their cargo before being allowed to leave. Taeyang smiled without humor. Send the 4th Fleet to escort them out. If the Vren ships do not move aside, they are to be treated as hostile. Make sure our friends understand we are not asking for permission. The officer hesitated. Sir, that could start a war. Then they should move aside, Taeyang replied calmly. 6 hours later, 3 cargo ships crossed into human space, escorted by 40 warships. The Vren had not moved aside. They had not dared. The human fleet had simply taken position around the merchants and proceeded forward. When Vren vessels attempted to block the path, targeting systems locked onto them with such precision that their own alarms screamed warnings. They moved. On the other side of the galaxy, Subin was having a different kind of day. She stood in the central control room of the Aurum Collective's main power distribution facility. Watching her team pack up equipment, the crystalline aliens who owned the facility stood nearby, trying to understand what was happening. But you cannot leave, one of them said, its voice full of confusion. This facility requires constant human oversight. The quantum regulators need adjustment every 6 hours. The power flow algorithms are too complex for our systems to manage alone. Subin finished downloading the last of her personal files. You should have thought about that before the council meeting. We offered to train your people 5 years ago. You said it was unnecessary because humans would always be here to do the work. You were wrong. We will pay you more. Double your current salary. Triple it. It's not about money, Subin said. She handed over a data chip. Here are the basic maintenance procedures. Follow them exactly, and you might keep the lights on for a few months. After that, you'll need to find your own solution. Good luck, she left. Her team left. Behind them, the Aurum engineers stared at the incomprehensible human technology that kept their entire energy grid functioning. They had 3 months of automated protocols before the system would begin to fail. After that, billions of Aurum citizens would lose power to their homes, their hospitals, their life support systems. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On a Soros medical station, human doctors finished their shifts and pack their equipment. The reptilian staff begged them to stay, explaining that human medical technology was keeping thousands of elderly Soros alive. The doctors left anyway, taking their equipment with them. Within weeks, those patients would begin to die. On a Nebula Consortium research facility, human scientists shut down a project that was close to solving faster-than-light communication across intergalactic distances. The gaseous aliens pleaded that the research was too important to abandon. The scientists explained that importance should have been considered before trying to enslave the people doing the research. EUNG monitored it all from her station at the edge of human space. As a xenosociologist, her job was to understand alien cultures and predict their responses to various situations. She had predicted this exact scenario 3 years ago in a report that the Galactic Council had ignored. Another request for assistance, her assistant said. This one is from the Vren hegemony. Their quantum communication network is failing. They want human technicians to return immediately. Response? Yunji asked. The standard reply. Humanity is no longer available for contract work within Council space. They should seek assistance from Council member species. Yunji pulled up a map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where human withdrawal was causing immediate problems. Yellow zones showed regions that would experience issues within months. Green zones indicated places that could manage without human support. The map was almost entirely red and yellow. They still don't understand, she said quietly. They think we're negotiating. They think this is a tactic to get better terms. Her assistant nodded. When will they realize we meant it? When their civilization starts collapsing? Maybe not even then. In human space, the transformation was remarkable. Jae-Sung stood on the balcony of his governor's office and looked out at the colony below. New construction was everywhere. Factories that had been idle for years were now running at full capacity. Agricultural facilities were being expanded. Mining operations were doubling their output. Economic reports are extraordinary, his aide said. Without the council taxes, our gross production has increased by 40% in just 2 months. Our standard of living is rising faster than any projections predicted. Us. Jae-Sung nodded. We were supporting the entire galaxy and calling it cooperation. Now we're supporting ourselves and calling it what it really is: freedom. Production Minister the Jin was seeing the same pattern repeated across all human industrial worlds. She stood in a factory that had previously manufactured parts for alien ships. Now it was producing components for human vessels. The workers were the same, the equipment was the same, the output was staying within human space instead of being shipped away. We have a problem, her chief analyst said. We're producing more than we need. Warehouses are filling up with excess goods. The Jin smiled. That's not a problem. That's an opportunity. Start reaching out to the younger species, the ones the Council always ignored. Offer them fair trade agreements. Not exploitation, genuine partnership. Let's show the galaxy what real cooperation looks like. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was beginning to panic. 3 months after the human walkout, the economic data was undeniable. Galactic trade volume had dropped by 35%. 17 minor conflicts had erupted in regions where human mediators would have prevented them. 5 species had declared bankruptcy. 2 more were on the verge of civil war. The Council called emergency sessions. They blamed each other for the crisis. The Vrin accused the Aurum of being too harsh in the original terms. The Aurum blamed the Soros for suggesting the 80% tax rate. Everyone blamed humanity for being unreasonable. None of them admitted the truth. They had become dependent on human innovation, human labor, human problem-solving. They had taken it all for granted, assumed it would always be available, treated the providers as servants rather than partners. Now they were learning the cost of that mistake. and humanity watched from behind their borders, building something new, something better, something that would change the galaxy forever. The question was no longer whether the Council would survive. The question was what would replace it when it finally fell apart. The war started over a mining asteroid that nobody had cared about for 50 years. It sat on the border between Vren and Aurum space, technically in neutral territory, but practically worthless. Then the human mining operations pulled out. And suddenly, everyone remembered that the asteroid contained rare metals. It's necessary for faster-than-light drives. Without human mediation, the dispute went from diplomatic notes to military posturing in less than a week. The Vren sent a fleet to claim the asteroid. The Aurum sent their own ships to block them. Neither side was willing to back down. Neither side had the human negotiators who would have found a compromise that satisfied everyone. The first shots were fired on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. By Wednesday, both sides had committed their full military forces. By Friday, 6 star systems were burning. Yoonji watched the reports come in from her research station. Her predictions had been accurate, but that gave her no satisfaction. "How many dead so far?" she asked. "Estimated casualties are in the millions," her assistant replied. "Both sides are using weapons that were banned under the old treaties. Without human enforcement, those treaties might as well not exist." And the Council. They called for a ceasefire. Both sides ignored them. The Council no longer has any authority that isn't backed up by force. And their enforcement fleet was mostly human-designed ships operated by human-trained crews. None of that exists anymore. The war spread. The Soros Empire saw an opportunity to claim territory from both sides and launch their own attacks. The Nebula Consortium tried to remain neutral, but found themselves targeted by all 3 factions. Smaller species were caught in the crossfire, their colonies destroyed, their populations fleeing toward any safe harbor they could find, and they fled toward human space. The first refugee ships arrived at the human border for months after the walkout. Colonial Governor Jae-soon received the request for asylum and didn't know what to do. These were Kelvin, a species of small bipedal mammals who had never been part of the Council's leadership. They had been traders, artists, and scholars. Now homeless because their worlds had been caught between the warring empires, Jae-soon contacted the central government. "We have 3,000 Kelvin refugees at our border. They're requesting permission to enter human space. What are our orders?" President Soo-jin appeared on the screen. She looked tired. "What do you think we should do?" They had nothing to do with the Council's decision. "They're innocent victims of a war that we indirectly caused by leaving. We didn't cause this war," Soo-jin said firmly. "The Council's arrogance caused it. Their inability to function without exploiting us caused it. But you're right about the Kelvin. Let them in. Provide them with humanitarian aid. And make it clear that we will accept any species who comes in peace and respects our sovereignty." The word spread quickly. Human space became a refuge for the displaced and the desperate. But humans were careful. Every refugee was screened. Every ship was inspected. No weapons, no spies, no council agents. Those who came in peace were welcomed. Those who came with ulterior motives were turned away. Min-SEO. The intelligence officer was responsible for that screening. She sat across from a Kelvin family, their fur matted with stress, their eyes wide with fear. "Why do you want to come to human space?" she asked. "Because you are the only ones who are not fighting," the father said. "Because the stories say humans value life. Because we have nowhere else to go." Minesio approved their entry. She approved hundreds more like them. But she also caught 3 council spies trying to enter as refugees. 2 Vrin saboteurs with explosives, and 1 Aurum agent attempting to steal human military technology. Each was quietly deported back to where they came from. The galactic economy continued its collapse. Without human trade networks, supply chains broke down. Worlds that had imported food for decades faced starvation. Medical supplies ran out. Technology degraded without human maintenance. The Council tried to fill the gap, but they had never understood how the systems worked. They had simply used them and assumed they would always Function Subin received a desperate message from the Aurum facility she had abandoned. The power grid had lasted 3 months, then failed exactly as she predicted. Billions of Aurum were without electricity. Their hospitals were dark. Their water purification systems were offline. Their civilization was dying. Please, the message begged. We will pay anything. We will agree to any terms. Just help us. Subin deleted the message. She felt no satisfaction in their suffering, but she felt no obligation to save them either. They had made their choice. Now they were living with the consequences, but not everyone in human leadership agreed. Fleet Admiral Taeyang argued at a council meeting that humanity had a moral obligation to prevent genocide. Even if the victims had treated humans poorly, we're talking about billions of lives, he said. Yes, the Aurum leadership was arrogant and dismissive, but the common people had no say in that decision. Children are dying in the dark because we decided to prove a point. Hyenwu, now serving as an advisor to the president, disagreed. If we go back now, we prove that they were that humans will always come running when called. That they can treat us however they want because we're too soft to hold a grudge. We cannot save them from themselves. The debate raged for hours. Finally, President Sujin made the decision. We will not return to council space, but we will provide humanitarian aid to civilian populations through neutral third parties. Medical supplies, food, water, purification technology. Not as a gift, but as a sale at fair market prices. They want human help? They can pay for it like equals, not demand it like masters. The aid program began, but it was too little, too late for many. Entire species went extinct in the wars that followed. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years collapsed in months. The galaxy had been a house of cards held together by human labor, and now the cards were falling. The council sent a delegation to the human border. They came in a damaged ship, wearing threadbare uniforms, representing a government that no longer had any real power. They asked for a meeting with human leadership. Hyenwu agreed to see them. They met on a neutral station just inside human space. The Vren representative looked nothing like the proud leader who had demanded human submission 6 months ago. His carapace was cracked, his movements slow with exhaustion. We were wrong, he said simply. The council offers an apology. We ask that humanity return and help us restore order. We will give you a seat on the council with full voting rights. We will reduce the taxation to reasonable levels. We will respect your autonomy. Hyenwu listened politely. When the speech ended, he responded, You offer us a seat at a table that no longer exists. The council is dead. You just haven't admitted it yet. Humanity has moved forward. We suggest you do the same. Then billions will die. Billions are already dead, Hyenwu said quietly. And it's not our fault. It's yours. You built a system that depended on exploitation. When we refused to be exploited, the system collapsed. That's not our failing. That's yours. The delegation left. Behind them, the galaxy continued to burn. A year after the walkout, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The great empires that had ruled for millennia were shadows of themselves. The Vren hegemony controlled a third of their former territory. The Aurum Collective had split into 14 separate factions. The Soros Empire was fighting a civil war, and the council chamber on Meridian Prime sat empty and dark. But in human space, something new was growing. The Kelvin were the first to formally request membership in what humans were calling the Commonwealth. They had been refugees for 8 months, living in temporary housing on human colony worlds, learning human languages and customs. Now their elected leader, a small woman with silver fur, stood before President Sujin with a proposal. We want to join you, she said. Not as subjects, but as partners. We can offer our expertise in art, culture, and education. In return, we ask for protection and a voice in how the Commonwealth is governed. Sujin considered the request carefully. You understand that membership means following Commonwealth law? That includes regulations on military activity, trade practices, and civil rights. We understand. Your laws are fair. More fair than anything the Council ever offered us. You understand that any member can leave at any time? We will not hold you here against your will, the Kelvin leader smiled. That is precisely why we want to join. You are the only ones who give us a choice. The Kelvin became the first non-human member of the Commonwealth. Within weeks, 7 other species submitted similar requests. They were the younger races, the ones the Council had always ignored or exploited. They saw in humanity what the elder races had refused to see. A partner rather than a master. Fleet Admiral Tiang found himself in an unusual position. His fleet was now responsible for protecting not just human worlds, but the worlds of 8 different species. It required a complete restructuring of military doctrine. He called a meeting with his senior officers, including several non-humans who had been trained in human tactics. "We're not building an empire," he told them. "We are building a defense network based on cooperation. Each species contributes what they can. Each species shares in the protection. If the Kelvin cannot afford battleships, they provide supply chains. If the Grax cannot produce weapons, they offer their expertise in medicine. Everyone gives what they have. Everyone receives what they need." It was revolutionary. It was also remarkably effective. Within 6 months, the Commonwealth fleet was more diverse, more adaptable, and more powerful than the old Council forces had ever been. And unlike the Council, which had relied on human innovation while suppressing human authority, the Commonwealth encouraged every species to contribute their unique strengths. But the elder races were not ready to give up. The Vryn hegemony, desperate to restore their former glory, launched a surprise attack on a Commonwealth border world. The world was inhabited by the Trill, a species of aquatic beings who had joined the Commonwealth 3 months earlier. They had no military forces of their own, but they didn't need them. Taeyong's response was swift and devastating. The Commonwealth fleet appeared within hours, having been positioned in the region specifically to deter such attacks. The Vryn ships found themselves facing not just human vessels, but a coordinated force, including Kelvin scouts, Grax support ships, and human warships that had been upgraded with technology shared by 6 different species. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the Vryn fleet was destroyed. Not damaged, not defeated, but completely annihilated. The Commonwealth forces had used weapons technology that the old Council had never imagined. Humans had always been innovators, but when they shared that innovation with partners who contributed their own ideas, the results were exponential. 1 VN ship survived, allowed to escape deliberately so it could report what happened. The message was clear. The Commonwealth would protect its members with overwhelming force. Any species that attacked a Commonwealth world would face consequences that made the old Council's enforcement look gentle, the younger species noticed. Within 3 months, the Commonwealth had 23 members. Within 6 months, 37. The flood of applications became so numerous that President Su Jin had to establish a formal vetting process. Hugh, now serving as the Commonwealth's foreign minister, interviewed each species personally. He sat across from a representative of the Shinal, species of bird-like beings, who had been neutral throughout the Council era. "Why do you want to join?" he asked. "'Cause you offer what the Council never did," the Shinal replied. "A voice, a choice, a future that we help build rather than one imposed upon us. And if we make decisions you disagree with, then we argue our position and accept the majority vote. That is democracy." The Council called itself a council, but it was a dictatorship of the elder races. You call yourself a Commonwealth, and you actually mean it. The Shinal were accepted. So were the others who came with genuine intentions. But Haiyan Wu also turned away several species who saw the Commonwealth as a replacement for the Council, a new master to serve in exchange for protection. Those species were politely declined. The Commonwealth was not collecting subjects. Meanwhile, the elder races struggled. The Aurum Collective sent a formal petition to join the Commonwealth as a single member. The application was rejected, not because humans wanted revenge, but because the Aurum still functioned as a stratified society with rulers and ruled. Commonwealth law required that all member species practice representative government. The Aurum were welcome to apply again once they reformed their society. It was a diplomatic earthquake. The Aurum had assumed that their application would be accepted immediately, that humans would be honored by their request. Instead, they were told they didn't meet the standards. The message spread across the galaxy. The Commonwealth had principles, and those principles applied to everyone. The Soros Empire tried a different approach. They sent diplomats with lavish gifts, offering tribute if humanity would simply protect their borders from their enemies. The diplomats met with Menesio, who had been promoted to Foreign Intelligence Director. "We don't want tribute," she told them. "We want partners. We can pay you enormous amounts of resources. Rare minerals, exotic materials, anything you need." "What we need," Menesio said firmly, "is for you to understand that the galaxy has changed. Humans don't want to be paid to solve your problems. We want to work together to build solutions that benefit everyone. If you can't understand that difference, then we have nothing to discuss." The Soros diplomats left, confused. They had been raised in a culture where everything was transactional, where power meant the ability to buy service. The idea of genuine cooperation was foreign to them, but the younger species understood. They had lived under the boot of the elder races for generations. They knew what exploitation looked like, and they recognized that humanity was offering something different, something better. Dehaen, now the Commonwealth's economic minister, published a report that shocked everyone. The Commonwealth economy had grown by 300% in a single year. Member species were prospering in ways they never had under the Council. Trade between members was conducted fairly, with regulations that prevented exploitation. Technology was shared freely among partners. The standard of living was rising for everyone. "We are proving something the Council never believed," Dehaen said in a public address. "That cooperation is more profitable than exploitation. That partnership produces better results than domination. That treating people with respect generates loyalty that fear never could." The galaxy was splitting into two worlds. On one side, the remnants of the old council, still clinging to their ancient hierarchies and prejudices, still trying to rule through force and intimidation. On the other side, the growing Commonwealth, young and diverse and vibrant, building something that had never existed before, and humanity stood at the center of it, not as rulers, but as the founders of a new way of thinking. They had walked away from the council's table, and in doing so, they had built a better table where everyone had a seat. 3 years had passed since. Ewan walked out of the council chamber. He stood now on a balcony overlooking the new Commonwealth capital on Terra Nova, a world that had been a minor human colony before the walkout. Now it was home to representatives from 53 different species, all living and working together in ways the old council had never imagined. The city below was a remarkable sight. Kelvin markets sat next to human restaurants. Grax medical centers operated alongside Trill aquatic facilities. Architecture from a dozen worlds mixed together in a style that was uniquely Commonwealth, belonging to everyone and no one. "Hard to believe it's only been 3 years, Ji-won said, joining him on the balcony. She was no longer just a military advisor, but the Commonwealth's defense coordinator, working with officers from 30 different species. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime," Hyen-woo replied. "Other times, it feels like yesterday that we were sitting in that council chamber, being told to accept servitude." "Walking away?" Hyen-woo considered the question. Millions died in the wars that followed. Species went extinct. Entire civilizations collapsed. How could I not carry some guilt about that? But it wasn't our fault. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are different things. We could have stayed. We could have accepted their terms and tried to change things from within. Guan shook her head. "We tried that for 200 years. It never worked. The council would have used us until there was nothing left, then discarded us. At least this way, we built something worth having." Down in the city, a ceremony was taking place. Another species was joining the Commonwealth, bringing the total membership to 53. They were the Dane, a species of silicon-based life forms who communicated through vibrations. The old council had considered them too alien to bother with. The Commonwealth welcomed them as equals. President Sujin presided over the ceremony. She had been re-elected twice now, both times by overwhelming margins from both human and non-human voters. The Commonwealth Constitution allowed any species to vote for any candidate. and Sujin's fairness had won her support across all member worlds. "We welcome the Dane people to our Commonwealth," she said. The words were translated into 53 different languages simultaneously, a feat that required technology from 6 different species working together. "You bring unique perspectives and abilities that will enrich us all. In return, we offer you partnership, protection, and a voice in our shared future." The Dane representative responded through a translation device. "For 3,000 years, our people existed alone. The Council told us we were too different to matter. Humanity told us that difference is strength. We join not because we must, but because we choose to. That choice is the greatest gift any species has ever offered us." It was a common theme among the newer members. The Council had ruled through necessity and fear. The Commonwealth grew through choice and respect. The difference was everything. Fleet Admiral Taeyang watched the ceremony on a screen aboard his flagship. His fleet was currently on patrol along the Commonwealth's outer borders, territory that now spanned almost a quarter of the galaxy. It was a diverse fleet, with human ships forming the core but vessels from 20 other species providing specialized capabilities. His second-in-command was a Kelvin named Sela, who had proven to be a brilliant tactical officer. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from a Varen civilian ship. They're under attack by pirates in neutral space. Distance: 3 hours at maximum speed. By the time we arrive, they'll likely be destroyed or captured." Taeyang thought for a moment. The Varen were not Commonwealth members. They were part of the empire that had tried to enslave humanity. But they were also civilians in danger. "Change course. Maximum speed. And send a message to the pirates. Tell them they have exactly 3 hours to leave the area or face Commonwealth justice." "Sir, the Varen are our enemies." "The Varen government is not our friend," Taeyang corrected. "But we don't abandon civilians to pirates, regardless of their species. That's what separates us from the Council." The fleet arrived to find the pirate ships already fleeing. The Commonwealth's reputation had grown enough that even criminals knew not to face them in battle. The Varen civilian ship was damaged but intact, its crew bewildered that humans had come to their rescue. Word of the rescue spread. It was one incident among thousands, but it illustrated a fundamental truth about the Commonwealth. They didn't just protect their own. They protected anyone who needed protection if they could reach them in time. It was a moral stance that cost them resources and sometimes lives. But it was also what made species want to join them. The old council had inspired fear. The Commonwealth inspired hope ex Gade. Now, the Commonwealth's chief xenosociologist published a comprehensive study of the galactic situation. The data was stark. The elder races controlled less than 30% of their former territory. Their economies had contracted by 70%. Their populations were in decline. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth had grown from 3 human colonies to 53 member species spanning hundreds of worlds. "The shift is irreversible," she wrote in her conclusion. "The old order is dead. The question now is whether the elder races will adapt or continue to decline until they disappear entirely." The Aurum Collective was the first of the elder races to truly adapt. They underwent a complete governmental reform, transitioning from a stratified hierarchy to a representative democracy. It was painful and chaotic, with conservative factions fighting against change. But eventually, the reformers won. 3 years and 2 months after being rejected, the Aurum applied again to join the Commonwealth. This time, Haiyan-Wu recommended acceptance. The application was put to a Commonwealth-wide vote. It passed with 78% approval. The Aurum, who had once demanded human submission, joined as equal partners with humans and 52 other species. It was the beginning of a trend. The Soros Empire split into 7 smaller nations, 4 of which reformed their governments and applied for membership. The Varen hegemony collapsed entirely, replaced by dozens of independent Varen worlds, each making its own decision about its future. Some joined the Commonwealth. Others remained independent, but signed trade and defense agreements. The galaxy was reorganizing itself around a new principle: that free people working together could accomplish more than slaves driven by masters. 5 years after the walkout, Haiyan Wu was asked to give a speech at the Commonwealth's anniversary celebration. He stood before representatives from 18 nine-member species, looking out at a diversity that would have been impossible under the Council. When we walked away from that meeting 5 years ago, people thought we were being foolish, he said. They thought we would come crawling back within weeks. They thought we needed them more than they needed us. They were wrong about all of it. But we were also wrong. We thought we were just saving ourselves from exploitation. We didn't realize we were starting a revolution. We didn't know that our refusal to accept servitude would inspire others to demand their own freedom. We didn't plan to build a new galactic order. We just wanted to be treated with respect. And that, I think, is the lesson. Real change doesn't come from grand plans. It comes from simple principles, applied consistently. Treat people with respect. Value cooperation over domination. Build systems that serve everyone, not just the powerful. Give people the freedom to choose their own path. The Council fell because it violated all of those principles. The Commonwealth thrives because we embrace them. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We have disagreements. But we face them as partners, not as masters and servants. And that makes all the difference. Later that evening, Haiyan Wu sat in a quiet garden with his old friends. Ji-Won was there, and Dae-Haiyan, and Taeyong, and Su-Bin. They were older now, tired from years of building something new. But they were also satisfied. Do you think it will last? Su-Bin asked. Or will the Commonwealth eventually become what the Council was? I don't know, Haiyan Wu admitted. Power corrupts. Success breeds complacency. We might fall into the same traps the Council did. But we built in safeguards, Daehan said. The right of any member to leave. The requirement for democratic governance. The ban on exploitation. These aren't just laws. They're the foundation. Foundations can crumble, Gi-Won observed. It will take constant effort to maintain them. Then we'd better get to work, Taeyang said with a smile. We proved that walking away from a bad situation